These will be the supplies I use for most of my painting projects. So if you follow along with us, these items are the basics that you'll need. You'll need paper palette. This is Strathmore, but any paper palette that you have or you can find will be fine. Tracing paper, sanding paper if we're working on a wood project. Even on canvas I use sanding paper. Transfer paper, this is graphite. Do not get a wax one. White and black. Paints, and I'll go over the paints we need for each project when we work on them. You'll need a pencil, a Sharpie, ultra fine point permanent marker, acrylic gesso, which you can use on wood and on your canvas projects. First step, all-purpose sealer or any all-purpose sealer that you might have. This is for wood items. You'll need a clear wood satin finish. This will go on your finished piece when you're done. You'll need brushes, and I'll be more specific on what brushes you'll need as we work on the projects. You'll need a water basin, or you could use a glass of water. This has some grates in it which are real good to clean your brushes with. I really believe you should clean your brushes in order for them to perform the way you need. And you'll also need some paper towels, and these are just some Vivas that I've cut and folded. Any paper towels will do. You will also need a stylus for your projects. First thing I'd like to talk about is the palette paper. This is Strathmore. What it is a glossy coated paper. I hope you can see that. What that paper does when you use it, you put your paints on it and it keeps your paints from bleeding through that glossy waxy side. Strathmore is a good pad. There are 40 sheets in here. I cut the paper in half and I put it on this clipboard. If you don't have paper palette, what you can substitute and use for it is Reynolds Kitchen plastic coated freezer paper. This is basically the same thing. You get more in a roll. It still has that glossy coating. You see that? I hope you can. And what I do is I take the sheets and I cut them. I will put them between heavy books to flatten them and leave them there until I'm ready to use them. And then I cut them to fit the clipboard. You can get a whole lot more out of the Reynolds Kitchen freezer paper, hundreds of them, compared to the 80 sheets that you can get by cutting the palette paper. Next, I'll be going over the tracing paper. This is bifane. Doesn't matter what kind you have, just as long as you can see through it. This is what you want. Tracing paper is what you are going to use to trace your pattern for the project you're going to be painting on. What I do is I take the paper and I'll cut it to size. If it's a small project, I don't waste paper. I'm frugal. So along with the tracing paper, you're going to need a stylus. There's different size. They have little balls on the end of them. I don't know if you can see that or not. But you'll be using the balls of these stylus. Like I said, I cut the paper to fit the project. I'm going to take this dark background so we can see what's going on a little better. So with the cut piece, what you'll do with this is you'll take your pattern. This is just a little snowman face. You'll place it. As you can see the pattern actually underneath. This is where the Sharpie permanent marker comes in. You do not want to use regular ink out of a pen because it's usually an India ink and it'll bleed through anything you paint. So no matter how many times you try to paint, it'll come through and you'll have to keep on basing it up. So you'll take your Sharpie and you'll just go over your pattern. So basically this is what the tracing paper is for. You can see you have the pattern now. Can't see it very well right there, it's too white. There you go. So this is how you transfer your patterns onto that tracing paper, and that's why you'll need tracing paper. The next thing I'd like to go into detail about is graphite paper. This is transfer paper, it's graphite. Do not purchase wax paper, graphite. It's hard to cover with paint. Usually there are 2 pieces per pack. They're 18 by 36. They come in a white and a black. They're really, really big. So down the road, we do canvases. This is a good size to keep it. That's huge. What I like to do is I usually cut it into fourths or into the squares, and then I'll go ahead and cut that in half. And this is usually the size I use for ornaments, small projects, or you can even use it and then slide it down on the pattern. To give you an idea of how to use this graphite paper, we're going to take that pattern that we copied, we're going to place it on a surface that has been primed. And this, of course, I'll go over it, but I just want to give you the idea of how to do it. Some people have a hard time keeping it straight, so you can cut it out to the shape and tape it. But you'll take it and you'll slide your graphite under it, and you'll take your stylus with that ball point and you'll go over the lines. So let me do that real quick. We won't take too much time with it. It's not a person's face and it's not a realistic piece, it's a cutesy piece. So even if it's not exactly perfect, it's still going to turn out to be a cute piece. Okay, so that's been done. Now, can you see how that transferred to it? See if I can pull that in a little bit. There we go. Something I do when I cut this palette paper, I don't know how many times, I have put a pattern on and used the paper on the wrong side, because sometimes it's hard to realize that. And you do the whole thing. Sometimes there's a whole lot of lines when you transfer a pattern. This is easy, but when you pull it out and you see that you've transferred it and there's no lines, it's kind of aggravating. So best thing to do, I found, is when you cut your palette paper, take your stylus, dip it in little light paint, and mark it so that you know this side goes up, and you won't ever have that problem of putting your paper down wrong again. Next, we have sanding papers. There are different kinds, different grits, different colors. The lower the number on the grit, this is 180, this is 220, this is 100. The lower the number, 100, would be the heaviest grit. 220 is the finest. When it's raw wood, I start with the heavier grit and then I work to a finer grit. If you don't have these pads, don't worry about it. There are substitutes that you can use. These are like a Brillo pad that you can purchase 3 to a pack at your grocery store or at Walmart. I take them, cut them in half. And most of our husbands have sandpaper. Sandpaper that's on a paper, it's not a pad. You can take that sandpaper and cut it, take it and put it on the pad, wrap it around, and then find some tape and tape it. This will work just as good as these pads. When this runs out, it gets wore out, this is getting there pretty close, you can just untape it, take it off, keep your pad, and just re-coat it, put another piece of sandpaper on it, and tape it. You've got sandpaper. So these are two types of first step sealers. We have JWs, there are other brands. This is an all-purpose sealer. It's perfect for furniture, craft projects, cabinets, tabletops, trays. I use this sealer for wood. You have to sand your wood first, wipe it off, apply the first step with a thick or a wide brush, let it dry. You're going to sand it again. I put 2 to 3 coats of this on, letting it dry in between and sanding. That starts you with a smooth surface to start painting with. Acrylic gesso can also be used on your wood pieces to seal them. I mostly use it on canvas. When I apply it on canvas, I never use it straight out of the bottle, and I'll tell you why. I don't know how many times when I first started painting that I would take it, pour it out on my palette or on the plate, and I'd go into it with a brush, and then I'd apply it to the canvas. What happens is you will get some thick blotches on the canvas, and that in turn eventually will crack. It is not nice to look at. It's not nice to try to cover up with paint. I've taken sandpaper to it trying to smooth it out. That crack will not go away. So I learned that with my painting process, what I do is I water down just about everything I use. When I start painting, I water the brush, because if you don't, you're going to get paint dye on the paint bristles and it will not clean off. It'll be there. But not only that, it also puts water into your paint and into your gesso, and it keeps things thin and smooth, and that's what I want with my painting. The water basin basically is for your brushes. This one has 3 different wells. There's perforations in this side. I really like this one. Now, I've used glass before with water or other things. I just happen to like this. It's kind of dirty now because it's used. About once every month I'll take it and do a deep clean. I'll take Pine Sol, hot water, let it soak, and then I'll scrub it out. But what this is for basically is when your brushes are dirty, you're going to take it into this big side and you're going to go in one direction right to the ferrule. The ferrule is the silver part on the brush. And you're going to go in one direction, and then you're going to flip it over and clean it in the opposite direction, going in the same direction but the opposite side. And you're going to do that until it's clean in the ferrule area. You don't want paint stuck in there. Your paint brushes will make a difference when you're painting. You want them to be to where they'll do what they need to do. This side here, basically, if you're needing clean water, what I'll do is on the palette, I'll take it when I need some water and I'll put drops on it, and I'll pick those drops up because they'll be soaked up into the brush if the brush is needing water. See how it's just sucking them up? So I use water droplets out of it, and then for liner work, I'll dip into the water and thin the paint down for that. I also use a acrylic sealer when I'm done painting on my pieces. This happens to be a Deft product. It's a clear wood finish. I like satin because it's not real shiny, glossy. This I purchased at Ace Hardware. They used to have a wonderful one that was instant drying. I like this one because it's super fast to dry, and sometimes I'm in a little bit of a hurry. I want things done. So this is perfect, or any acrylic sealer, just as long as you have a sealer that you can spray on your piece because you want it to last. You want to be able to wipe it down in years to come when it's dirty, and this will help to do that. It preserves it, and you'll be glad you added that extra touch to your piece. I use acrylic paints. The paints I have are, some of them are over 20, 25 years old. They're hard to find nowadays. I'm so glad I kept them. These are just a sampling of some of the colors that I have and I use. I use Accent, Americana, Ceramcoat. Sometimes I'll use a Duncan. There are other brands out there. If you have them, use what you have because it can be expensive to purchase different colors of paint, different brands of paint. And nowadays, actually, it is so hard to find paint in certain colors. So hopefully we can down the road also learn mixing to where if you need a color, we can mix to get that particular color that you need. And hopefully we'll have some fun with this. I'm looking forward to it. Paint brushes. There are so many and different kinds. We have angulars. You can tell it's on an angle. Liners. I like 20 alts or 10 alts are good. They're real fine. If you're doing line work, and I don't do a lot of it, you would go into a size 2 on up to maybe a 6 or a 10. We have specialty brushes. I'm not going to go into them right now. We also have flats. It's called a flat because it's flat. Angular, liner. Since the first project is going to be that little snowman that we traced off, we'll be needing either a blender or a stippler. Whichever one you have is fine. The stippler here is a Debbie Mitchell stippler, and the blender will help to soften the snowman when we add some colors to give him definition. So I hope I've been pretty specific on what I use with the projects, what you can use if you don't have them, and the reasons why we use them. It's kind of hard a lot of times for those of us that have painted to realize there are some out there that have never painted before, have never picked up a brush and painted. And I was there once. And I know how hard it was when I sat in class and the teacher was saying what to do, and a lot of the words she was saying were painting terms, and I had no idea what she was talking about. Made me feel kind of set back, not knowledgeable. We all start out not knowing what to do. So hopefully through these classes or these videos that I'm going to be doing, I hope I can ease your mind, and if there are any questions down the road, just drop them to me. Ask me. I won't be afraid to answer. Down the road also, I will be putting in links as to where you can purchase the items that I use. If I speed ahead and you're new and I cover something you're not sure about, bring it to my attention and I'll regroup and back up and we'll go from there. And it's just a matter of me remembering that we all have to start from the beginning. And for those of you that are a little more advanced, just bear with us. There might be something that I go over that you haven't heard before, and hopefully it will also help you. And in the meantime, I hope to learn also, because we're never too old to learn. So thank you so much for being with me today, and let's have fun.